Hi, welcome to my video on using the cosine law, given two sides and an included angle. Find x to the nearest tenth. Unit is feet. We have a triangle with sides of 6 and 10, and we have an angle of 50 degrees, and we want to find x. Notice there's no right triangle, so we can't use SOHCAHTOA. Notice we have an angle and no side. We have a side with no angle and a side with no angle, so we can't use the sine law. So we have to use the cosine law. And the cosine law that I use is c squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cos angle c. And when I do this, I say this is angle c and this is small c, and these two are a and b. So I want to find x, so x is c, a is 6, b is 10, minus 2, a is 6, b is 10, cos of 50 degrees. And as a result, I'm going to work this out two ways. I'm going to work it out doing my pencil and a little bit of the calculator, and I'm going to work it out totally with a calculator. I'll show you now. 6 squared is 36, 6 times 6, 10 squared is 100, minus 2, 6 times 10. Now the reason I'm obeying PEMDAS, and PEMDAS is I got to do my squares first. Now I'm going to leave that alone, and I'm going to multiply negative 2 times 6 times 10 on my calculator, cos 50, and when I do, that'll give me a negative 771. So again, just to remind you, and I'll show you that, I'm going to turn on my calculator, which is on. I'm going to go, so notice when you say it's subtract 2 or negative 2, it makes, you can say subtract, but if you do, see what happens when you do subtract, if you make it negative 2, you can use brackets, 6 bracket 10, and you'd use cos of 50. Close it off, and no, I'm using a graphing calculator here. Graphing calculator will show everything better, and that gives me a negative 77.13, etc., etc. So notice I put in a negative, not a subtraction, because if we put in a subtraction on this, then you do this by itself, put the negative in, and you come up with the 77.13. So let's move the calculator, and when we add that on, we'll get 58.87, or if you want to add it up, and that means that x is equal to the square root of x squared is plus or minus the square root of 58.87. So x is equal to plus or minus, and that's a 7.7. So x is the length of the side, so it's 7.7, and we have feet. Now, what I want to show you is that let's work this answer out, putting it in the calculator, totally in the calculator. Here we go. I'm going to go with, as you can see, I'm going to put all of this in the calculator that you see right now. So here we go. 6 squared, add on 10 squared. Now I can do a subtract. Right here, subtract 2, bracket 6, bracket 10. So the brackets only tells me I do multiplication. Cos, and I'm 50 degrees. And I close her off, and I'll hit the 56.68 right away, 56.87 right away. And then if I do the square root of that, here I go. So I'll go second function, square root is down here in yellow, that's why I hit this button. So there's the square root, and now the answer is already here, so if I go second function, answer, and close it, I'll get the 7.67, which is 7.7. So I can work it out individually like this, or I can plug it on the calculator and get the answers, your choice. B, another example. Now notice here that I'll point out now in a minute. So we have to find x in this triangle, two sides and an included angle in between the two. So notice we can't use, it's not a right triangle. We have an angle but no side. We have two sides but no opposite angles. So we have to use the cosine law. So c squared is a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cos angle c. And again, the angle that I have, I'll call c. The side opposite that I'll call small c. And a and b could be either one of these two. So x squared equals 11 squared plus 7 squared minus 2, 11, 7 cos 132. Now there's a reason why I'm working this out individually. I can plug it all in the calculator. But notice this time that this angle is obtuse. That means this side is going to be longer than either one of these. Whereas this triangle is acute, and this side right here, well, that's a C right there. I already have an X, so that's angle C, that's small c. So this side is going to be between the 6 and the 10, where this side is going to be larger than the 11 because it's obtuse. So let's work it out without putting it all in the calculator. So 11 squared is 121, 7 squared is 49, and again, I'm just doing the powers first. Now I'm going to do 121 plus 49. So now I'm going to work out this one. And I have to put that in the calculator. And here I go. Clear it. So I'm going to put in, again, make it negative. If I do this individually, I have to say -2. I'm going to clear that. Let's do a subtract. Notice when I do a subtract, I'll get the answer that I had previously, and I'm subtracting this from that answer. So when you do this, you got to be careful. 2 bracket 11 bracket 7 cosine of 132. Close it off, and I'll get 103. Notice this time is a positive 103 point, and you can go 05 if you want. Now that you have that, you can add on these two numbers, which is 121 and 49. And press equal sign. Whoop, see what happened? I had a go to there, so you got to be careful with the calculator. So it's 10, so let's clear that. So I had 121. There you see it, 121 plus 49 plus 49 plus 103.05. And that gives me 273.05. And if that's what x squared is. So the square root of x squared is plus or minus the square root of 273.05. So x is, and I have the answer there now. So since I'll do the square root of the answer. That's that answer of the two. I didn't type in the 273. I just did that shortcut, and I get 16.5. So that's plus or minus 16.5. So x is equal to positive 16.5, and again the units is in feet. So notice now, let me explain. Here, I'll show you. When you do the cosine of 50, the cosine of 50 degrees is going to be a positive decimal. Because the angle 50 is in the first quadrant, then the cosine is positive. And therefore, if you think of this as a positive decimal, so a negative times a positive, will give you a negative. But when we do the cosine of 132, that I'm going to show you, cosine of 132, cosine, this is the negative decimal. Because the angle is in the second quadrant, cos is related to the x is negative. So this is negative, and a -2, a negative times this negative makes this a positive. And that's why right here we have a negative with the cosine of 50, because that's positive times a negative is negative. This is a negative times a negative, which makes it positive. And notice we're adding these up. What we're happening there, we're adding these up, so the number is going to be larger than 11. Okay, so if you want, you may, your choice, you may take all of these and go 11 squared plus 7 squared. And again, now you can use subtract. So here, let's use the subtract. Because I have this, I can now use the subtract here. Subtract 2 bracket 11 bracket 7 cos 132, close it off, and notice that the answer comes out to be 273.05, or whatever you want to round it off to, which is, then you do the square root. So you can sub all this in the calculator, come up to this right here, and avoid all this if you want to use your calculator. But you got to be careful, practice, or you can work it out individually. And again, if you're working it out, you square these first, then you do this product after. There's the three numbers, and you add those, and then you do the square root. So it's your choice how you wish to handle this. But just in case, what you can do is, I have some more to do, so what you can do is pause your video and work these out. So we're going to find the value of x. X is this side. Again, we have two sides and an included angle. So it's not a right triangle, so we can't use SOHCAHTOA. Can't use the sine law because we have an angle, but we don't have a side. We have a side, but we don't have that angle. We have this side, but we don't have that angle. So sine law won't work. So c squared is a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine c. And again, this is the one I use. When I do, the angle that I have, or the angle that I'm looking for, I will call c. This is the angle. I will call that angle c. This is small c. The other two can be a and b. So c is x squared. A is 4.3 squared. B is 13 squared minus 2, 4.3, 13 cos of 161. Notice this is an obtuse angle, so this number here is going to be longer than the 13. There's 13, so this has got to be longer. Now, if you want to plug all that into a calculator, be my guest, or you can work them out individually, and it's your choice. But to make things short and to help us out, we'll go 4.3 squared, add on 13 squared, subtract 2, bracket 4.3, bracket 13, and we have the cos of 161, cosine of 161. Close it in a bracket and hit enter. And that gives us 293, 29293 point, and that's, round that off, so that's going to be close to a tenth, so it's 0.2. So now we got the square root of x squared is plus minus the square root of 293. Square root of x squared is x, plus minus, and the square root becomes 17.1 to the nearest tenth, and x is 17.1. I get a little bit hoarse. And it's to the nearest tenth of 17, and it's in centimeters because these sides are centimeters. Now you can also work it out individually like I showed you. Square these two first, then multiply this, and then you should come to 293.2. Number 2, again, pause the video if you wish. We have a triangle. So what I do is I draw my triangle. And I label my triangle as P, Q, R. And small r is 8, small p is 6, angle Q is 60. Find PR as a radical in the simplest form. So it says this is R, this is small q, and this is the small p. Okay, this is the large angle P. So it says small r is 8, so that's 8. Small p is 6, so that's a 6. Angle Q between the two is 60 degrees. So, again, we have an angle but no side. We have two sides but no angle, so we can't use a right triangle, no right angle. We can't use the sine law, so we have to use the cosine law. So c squared is a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine c. And again, the reason I use this, because c squared equals a squared, b squared is the Pythagorean property. And this is easy to learn. That is negative 2 times a and b cos of the angle that we have here. So we're trying to find PR, and PR is the Q. So I'll go PR squared is, we can go 8 squared plus 6 squared minus 2, 8, 6 cosine of the 60. Now we want it as a radical in simplest form. So if I plug all this into a calculator, will it come up to be, let's see what happens if I plug all that into a calculator. Here we go. And you work these out. So we have negative, we have 8 being squared. There we go, 8 squared plus 6 squared, subtract 2 bracket 8 bracket 6 and cosine 60. And it comes up to a beautiful number called 52. So that means the square root of PR squared is plus minus the square root of 50. So PR is plus minus 52. I said square root of 50. That should be 52. 52 is 2 into 52 is 26. 2 into 26 is 13. So the square root of 52 is 2 times 2 times 13. So PR is equal to, and that's a 4, so there's 2 root 13, and it has to be positive because the length can't be negative. So it's a radical in the simplest form. Now I could have taken, excuse me, I could have taken the 52 and did this square root of the answer, but that would have been a decimal. And this is an irrational number. 52 is an irrational number. So as a radical, I had to simplify the root of 52, break it down into the factors, and pick out the perfect square of 4. Remember that 52 could also be called 4 times 13. The square root of 4 is 2, or you can break it down like I did here. Okay, and one more to do. Find x to the nearest tenth. And it's just more practice, that's all this is. So again, this is the angle, this is the C, angle C, this is small c, so this is the A and the B. So C squared, A squared plus B squared minus 2AB cosine C. I have this done. C is x, so it's x squared is, again, you take 7.1 squared plus 9.2 squared minus A is 7.1, B is 9.2. So as I put them in order here, is 7.1 is first, 9.2 is second, and we got the cos of 42. And again, to plug all that into a calculator, and bring up the answer. Here we go. I got it written down here. So we have 7.1 squared, add on 9.2 squared, and now I'm going to subtract 2 bracket 7.1 bracket 9.2. Notice when I put it in the bracket I have to close it off, and I got bracket around the 7.1. I got bracket around the 9.2 because they indicate multiplication, and I do cosine of 42 degrees. Close it off, and what do I get? 37.96. 37.96. So we get, okay, 37.96. Did I do the 42? So it's 37.97. So the square root of x squared is plus minus the square root of 37.97. So x is plus or minus. So bring back the calculator, and we'll go inverse of the square root, pick up the answer, and we have a 6.16. 6.16, so x is 6.2 to the nearest tenth. And I just want to make sure it looks like everything is okay. 6.2 is the final answer. And that's a bit of practice on using the cosine law, because you can't use a right triangle because there's no right angle. You can't use the sine law because you don't have an angle on the opposite side. So that's practice on using the cosine law to get the length of the opposite side of the angle from the length of the side opposite the angle. And there's the practice on it. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, click on the like button, the subscribe button. If you're not a subscriber, visit my math website, www.mathfullyexplained.com, to find more information about me, my video, and the content on the YouTube channel called Math Fully Explained. Thank you for viewing my video. Bye-bye.